Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Brews and Reviews, and today I'm reviewing Atmosphere's new album, The Day Before Halloween, and I am sipping on a St. Arnold Amber Ale. That's a 6.2% Amber Ale coming in from Houston, Texas. A very straightforward, non-threatening type of beer. It goes down very smooth, and we are going to get the opposite of that with this experimental album. So let's get into it. First of all, I already threw this picture up when I did their single release, but I can't show it enough. You gotta know my credentials. Here's a picture of me and my wife and Slug together. So that's where I'm coming from as a true Atmosphere fan. Ant and Slug have been at it for a long time. Since 1996, they've been on the scene, and they've evolved tremendously over the years, from underground rap pioneers to dad rap mainstays who have produced a lot of longevity and been very prolific. Ant's innovative, engaging production have mixed with Slug's signature pessimistic, darkly humoristic, and personal lyrics to create a fan base that is like a cult following. And so that's what makes this release somewhat unique. When they dropped Blotter Acid Reflux Syndrome about a month ago, we knew that this album was going to be conceptual and experimental, something they've never really ventured into. And they did say at that time that this album would be loosely conceptualized around the life of a visual artist living in an antiquated surveillance state. And I will say the setup was on point. This is very different from what we've heard from Atmosphere in the past. Ant, who has a signature sound, you'd recognize an Ant beat anywhere, but you might not recognize the instrumentals here. They're very synth heavy, very experimental. Likewise with Slug, that has always been very focused on straightforward rhymes and kind of telling you conversationally how he's feeling or getting his point across that way. They're very effect laden on this and very masked, not only in effects, but in high symbolism and metaphors. And I think this is a welcome change for the guys, whether this is successful or not. I think it was time to do this because, as big of Atmosphere fan as I am, and as big as Atmosphere fan as anybody listening to this might be, you do have to admit that their last 3 or 4 albums started to run together. That's not saying that they're bad, it's just they kind of mesh together in your mind, and there's not really an album of the last 3 or 4 that has its own distinct sound. Where the road forks, and for what's supposed to be an ominous and dark album, the beat sure does sound happy here, with some uplifting synths and a very spacey beat. Slug, however, immediately turns it darker, as he is very good at doing, and he kicks some lyrics to set the ominous tone for the album. He says, "I kind of wish I was inside of somebody else's dream. I'm trying to fish for some faith that this ain't what it seemed. I mean, I might have seen them clouds, even felt some rain. My eyes are open like a window that's surrounded by pain." And while this world he's creating is definitely fictional, it may not be too far off from our own, making Slug a good satirist in the vein of George Orwell. His character is preparing for a journey in this song, and at the end of the song he says, "Meet me where the road forks," and that could definitely serve as a double meaning. Obviously there's the surface meaning where this character is meeting somebody at this location where the road forks, but it could also be speaking to our current situation, and that there's very 2 different paths, and which one are we going to choose will determine the future. It could be the end of the world down one path. We'll just have to wait and see. Space is safe. Ant comes through with another experimental beat, a warbling bass synth. And it's cool he was able to change his style like this. We just heard him produce the entire Felt album, which was much more signature Ant. So I think maybe these are beats from a while that he's been sitting on, just waiting for Sean to write something to them. And the choruses so far are like nothing you've heard on an Atmosphere album. Very effect laden. This one is half sung, so was the last one on the previous song. And it's just a different sound from what we're used to. This song, it does play into the theme some more as he appears to be bickering with a significant other about the end of the world that's impending, and he draws parallels to our own world again with the last lines in the song. He says, Got a lot of excuses to stop what you're doing. Phone died trying to binge watch the revolution. He could be saying here that while the world is crumbling around us, we are too distracted with things like our phone and binge watching to really get up and do something about it, to really change the world or keep it from going down this wrong path, and we will just stay distracted until our phone dies. She Loves Me Not, very interesting beat from Ant here, off-kilter drum patterns and more spacey synths. The keys on this do go a little bit too high for my ears and drown out some of what Slug is saying, but it's not too distracting. And we do get some of Slug's trademark pessimism here, revealing more about himself than his character, but he still builds in the end of the world theme. He says, let's make a wish on a falling star, like please don't let the star fall on me. Gotta handle my biz and try to catch a little bit so I can teach my kids the same impractical shit. This falling star in the story, of course, represents the end of the world, but personally, the falling star is Slug and him giving the irrational fear that he'll lose his career or his livelihood, while at the same time saying it's all bullshit anyway, that he would teach his kids this impractical shit for how to make a living, which doesn't really matter, but does, and he's scared that he'll lose it. Some trademark Slug lyrics here. The New People, this is probably the most experimental song on an experimental album, and whereas the last song kind of drowned out Slug's voice in certain parts, this song, he is fighting with the beat on purpose. This was very intentional that they did this. Slug is trying to tell us something that's very important, but the beat keeps cutting him off. And I like this. It's very creative. I haven't heard anybody do something like this before. And it's just really interesting, the sound and the setup that they have with this song in particular. We do find out by the end of the song that what he was trying to tell us is it all comes down to how fast the undead can run. That's something we may have wanted to know a little sooner. I wish the beat wouldn't have been cutting him off, because now the dead are probably gaining on us. Future is Disgusting. This is a more traditional Atmosphere kind of song with the drums, although the synths are still present, but you even hear some record scratching at the end. So this may be something for the fans wanting to hear some of the regular Atmosphere sound. Doubletown is another very short song, and at this point the concept is starting to get very loose, and these last couple songs aren't particularly adding to the story, in my opinion. I suppose Doubletown is something like what George Orwell described as double speak, or saying one thing that's completely untrue, but everybody still believes it. But this song also seems to be about a party or a celebration of life when it's all about to end. Stardust, and again, the concept is just getting more convoluted, other than the title of this and him saying at the end that this woman that he's arguing with throughout the song just wants him to return to Stardust. It doesn't really seem to be in tune with the theme. The only way it might really play into the theme is if this is a scene where this woman is selling him out in some way so she can go on living and he's dying here in this world that they're in, but I don't think the song really fleshes that out fully. Blood Acid Reflux Syndrome, still the best sounding song on the album in my opinion, and I went deep on this one when it dropped, and I think my analysis still holds up even more actually in the context of this album. So here's what I said then. It comes in with a drawn out organ and some resonant drums and a bass line with some spacey sounds in the background. There's a little effect on Sean's first words coming in, all adding to the trippy feel. As do his very first words of the verse, which definitely sound like the ponderings of somebody who's opened the doors of perception or think they have through acid, when he says, "Yesterday, I saw two houseflies going at it in the bathroom like a couple of barflies. It was disgusting, but not because of the fucking. It's just a random thought I had that everyone's an offspring of something. That's a whole lot of bacteria." Like, what if I'm just nothing but bacteria? Dude,
You blew my mind, man.
He gets less gross and a little more poetic a little bit later in the verse where he says, "We in the shadow of the shade of the moonlight. Let's say good night while it's still a good night, all right?" And with these lines, he's saying that we are almost at the end of the world, and let's just end it now while we can still have a good night. And I know somebody who's as personal in his lyrics as Slug couldn't separate himself from the character completely. He says, "I can't help but to think back before the shrink wrap, back before the sound man would sabotage with feedback. All I wanted was to be a part of something larger." Party crashers, in this penultimate song, this serves as the climax. Here it is. This is the end of the world. This is something that we've been waiting for. And pretty much every line from Slug is basically saying that death is imminent. Case in point, these very poetic lines where he says, "A whole lifetime trying to kill the pain. Now put my name up on the back of the train, and you can watch it pull away out of the camera's frame." And this is funny because these very dark lines are juxtapositioned with another upbeat, kind of happy beat. The drums on this are very much in the vein of Prince, who is somebody that is referenced frequently by Atmosphere. Of course, he is from their home city. It's also worth noting here that he made 1999, which was a song about partying when the end of the world may be imminent. So I think the sound and the way that Ant produced this beat here to be kind of Prince-esque was very intentional. Sleep apnea. The title suggests that despite the end of the world looming or us thinking that it was looming, we still continue to wake up. Sleep apnea, of course, being the disease where people wake up continuously. And let's not forget what Slug said at the beginning, and it's kind of tying it back to some of the lines that he started this album with, where he said he wishes he was inside of somebody else's dream, but he's woken up from that in this last song on the album. And is it good or is it bad to be alive? It kind of leaves it ambiguous at the end with contradicting lines in this song where he is telling somebody, presumably his wife or his significant other, that he can't commit to them, but also he says, "I don't even know if I'm supposed to be alive. All I know is that I love it when I open up my eyes and I'm surrounded by the people I would give up my life for." So these conflicting lines are a purposefully ironic way to end a very experimental album. Kudos to Atmosphere for straying from their signature sound on what is their 30-second project, depending on how you count them. That was very brave to do that at the risk of turning off their core fan base. And it's not like at this point in their career, they're really going to get a lot of new people coming into their fan base with this particular album, so you really feel that it's something they wanted to do. Ant had these experimental beats, and Slug had to do something experimental on top of them, and the musical talent that these guys have still shines through. It doesn't matter what the style is. Aesthetically, this was pulled off really well. That being said, not all of this works. The middle part starts to get a little blurry lyrically, and I wish they would have fleshed out the concept a little bit more. This was also much shorter than expected for an Atmosphere album. Also, while most of the songs sound good, not a lot of them will stand out in the large discography of Atmosphere. Nevertheless, you can't knock an album too much that is brave and taking chances and showing a lot of creativity for artists that have been in the game as long as they have. So that being said, I'm going to give this a 7 out of a 12 pack. Thank you for watching my review of Atmosphere's The Day Before Halloween. If you liked this, go ahead and hit like now and hit me up in the comments. If you didn't like it, also let me know why in the comments. I drop hip-hop and hops related content consistently, so you can subscribe to my channel. The link is popping up now. And on the other side, there's some recent videos that I've done. Until I see you next time, keep buzzing.